Earth meeting. For thousands of years, this land has been the home of the Patwin people, including the Yochadehe Witten Nation today. The Patwin people have remained committed to the stewardship of this land over many centuries. It has been cherished and protected as elders have instructed the young through generations. We are honored and grateful to be on their traditional lands. Hey, I'm going to
All
hand it
right.
over to Mike.
Thank you, Joan, and welcome everybody. So as you can see today, Pam McCabe, who's Yolo Master Gardener, is going to tell us about garlic and vampires. It's always good to be able to use your garden produce in multiple ways. So we're going to hear about that. Pam's been a master gardener since 2022, and she's an avid cook and uses a lot of garlic. So she certainly knows her stuff. So Pam, it's all yours.
Hi, welcome. Yeah, this is I've given this presentation a few times. It gets fixed up a little bit from time to time, but um, I um, I used to be the president of a garden club, and every month I had to write a article at the beginning of the newsletter. And so what I would do to get ready the month before ahead, I would go to my garden journal and look in October, what was I doing last year? And it would come up, oh, I was growing garlic. Okay, that's the time I grow garlic. And then I was thinking, because in the newsletter we like to make it fun and then talk about what's happening seasonally. And seasonally, it's Halloween that month in October. And so I wrote this article, how to grow garlic and vanquish vampires. And it won a statewide award for, for articles in a garden club newsletter. So it gave me a lot of confidence that to take this forward. Okay, and I've been growing garlic for quite some time. Like Mike was saying, I love to cook with it, and it's very special to have your own. I'm going to go forward here. Okay, about those vampires. Now, there's some connection in folklore about between vampires and garlic. It may be related to that allicin. That's like a sulfur kind of compound that is released when a garlic clove is cut. Okay, that's one of the protections for your garlic clove, and it's one of the reasons why garlic doesn't have very many pests. Okay, the sulfur compounds in the garlic allows the garlic bulb to survive while it's in the ground for so long. It's a long season crop, okay, where it's surrounded by its predators, that smelly, burning compound that is released when the garlic clove is disrupted, okay, and that can serve as a deterrent. Well, vampires, those are the fictional blood drinkers that dominate the horror genre. Uh, they may also have a connection to a rare blood disease. Okay, so for many centuries, garlic really has been known for its healing powers. I'm going to share some of that information with you. And it has a history amongst people of protecting them from evil. Okay. Okay, that disease. Okay, now I struggle with pronouncing this all the time. I had a pronunciation here. Porphyria. Porphyria. Okay, that is the blood disease. Okay, it's a very rare blood disorder. And it's usually inherited from one or both parents. One of the most famous cases of having porphyria was King George III. And if any of you got to see that miniseries, it was on Netflix with Queen Charlotte. Queen Charlotte was married to King George. And it would be memorable to you if you did see it, because you would see the horrors that he went through in living through that disease. And it probably was more prevalent because of intermarriage. Okay, like within the royal family, they often married cousins. Okay, so then you could have two genes, that resulted in you getting this disorder. Okay, what is it? What is that disorder? Okay, if they have this disorder, then their body produces high levels of porphyrins, and that's a type of enzyme. And when it builds up in the blood, it affects your skin and your nervous system. So some of the symptoms are sensitivity to light, that mental confusion. Again, if you saw the miniseries, you saw King George being very mentally confused and in a scary way. People sometimes have digestive problems. Okay, and so something like garlic might be difficult for them to digest. And even they sometimes had dental abnormalities where their gums receded, and so it looked like their teeth were bigger. Okay, you're kind of getting the picture of a vampire now. Okay, so it can cause those to suffer from. So I just look at the pronunciation. Porphy, porphy. Okay, porphyria. There you go. I don't know. Okay, so it might make them look really pale. Okay, and like I said, maybe their teeth look bigger because the gums have receded. In medieval times, then people with porphyria were often stigmatized and feared. Okay, some were thought to be cursed due to their mental confusion. I forgot to mention before I started that if you have questions, put them in the chat, and then at the end, I'll address those. Okay, garlic has been used for medicinal purposes through the years. It's an edible bulb. It's in the plant of the lily family. It was originally native to Central Asia, okay, and it really makes our food taste better. But it was also used for health purposes, and there are some Sanskrit records that show its medicinal use 5,000 years ago. Okay? And it was been used at least 3,000 years in Chinese medicine. It's a very strong antibiotic. So during World War I, the Russian army used garlic to treat wounds. Around in that time, the penicillin was discovered that largely replaced the use of garlic at home. But at times when the war had overwhelmed the capacity for antibiotics, garlic was used, again, as the best choice for an antibiotic. Okay, and I mentioned why I want to grow garlic. I want to cook with it, and I think that the homegrown garlic tastes so much better. Okay, I enjoy it a lot better. On my screen, the participants are covering part of my pictures. Is that true for everyone? Mike, can you tell me?
It is not true. It might be the way you have your view set up. It's
Okay. Okay, I want to make sure because I thought some of the pictures are covered by the people's pictures that are attending this workshop. Okay, thank you. Okay, so also you want to grow them because I'm telling you, their health benefits. Yeah, garlic is really good for you. And as a master gardener and a gardener just in general, it's easy to grow. Okay, so it's one of those crops that you should always include in your garden, especially if you eat it. We always say as master gardeners that you should grow what you eat. Okay, I would look at what, to me, the important part of growing it is it takes so little space. That picture you see of the leaves on the screen here, that's my garlic growing a couple of years ago. It's planted pretty close together. I'll go into more about planting it, but it's planted about 4 inches apart.
What happened? Oh, Wyatt. Hold on, let me make sure I'm muted.
Did I want to go into that about questions? Put them in the chat. Type them in the chat. Or we can open up to at the end, and you can discuss it. Kind of make a note about your questions. Okay, are we ready, Joan?
Yes.
Okay, okay, I know whether to go on. Okay, and then also we talked about how the garlic emits this allicin, has allicin in it, and that keeps predators away. So there's not much that bothers garlic. So you don't need a very big space, and you don't need to take care of it much. You can plant it and kind of forget it. Mike had asked me before we started about the different types. I consider two main types. There are more than that. And I do have a chart that will go over some of the other types, but there's two main types, and they're divided into hardnecks and softnecks. Hardnecks are primarily good to grow in a cold climate, colder than where we are. It does form these edible scapes, and you can see the picture on that screen. That's what scapes look like. And a lot of cooks, especially like kind of Asian cooking, love to include that. So you can harvest that and not disturb your bulbs that are in the ground. So they can keep growing as garlic. A couple of examples of hardnecks are German red and Ajo Rojo. So I just a couple of days ago, I was at a nursery in Davis, and they were selling Spanish Roja, and that's a hardneck. Okay, so we can grow it here. They don't grow as well as they do in a colder climate. But the softnecks are the ones that are for us. They do best in our climate. Okay, where we have the hot summers and the mild winter. They're very prolific, and they do store really well also. They store for a lot of months. The two most common ones that you will find in nurseries to purchase here are California Early and California Late. Elephant garlic is another kind of garlic, but it's not actually, it's called garlic, but it's not actually garlic, okay? It's a leaf, okay? But it tastes like garlic, okay? And has a mild flavor. You see that person's hand, just how big they are. This is a valuable chart, I think. It has like on the chart, and if you're looking at this like on your screen, like a iPad or something, it's handy to take like a screenshot of it if you wanted to save this. I can send it later with the handouts too, because it's hard to get all of the information in there. But it has the two main categories of the hard neck and the soft necks, and you're guided about the differences in them, okay? And you can see like they have different maturity times, that they have preferred climates. The cloves themselves within the garlic bulbs are structured a little differently, and there's different amounts in there. And then they have different storage times. Remember, I was saying that the soft neck have really good storage, and that's what you're looking for if you're growing your garlic to last you as long as possible. And then you want to know where to get it. Okay, and I'll be showing you the parts of a garlic, but we talk about the main part that you buy is the bulb, or some people call it the seed, garlic seed, okay? And I'd gone through when I first did this slide about my happy faces and sad faces, not so sure, and like, not a good idea. But I think the best place to get your garlic seed is through a local nursery. You know that they're going to carry what it is that grows best in your area. Over the years, I generally find it in a little sack, you know, just like you're going to buy some other bulbs like daffodil bulbs, tulip bulbs, that they will be sold in a sack of about 5 bulbs in a bag. Things might be changing in terms of the economy. I'll show you another picture later that they're now selling them each bulb separately. Very high price too. Okay, so they'll go for sale in your local stores in September and October when you need to be stocking them. Okay, you need them in October. You can get garlic seed by saving your own. Okay, that means though you'd have to save it from June to September or October. I mean, when you plant it. Okay, so you have to have a good way to save it. And I am going to talk later about how to save your garlic, but that would be a good one. You could save your own. You could order online. You're not so sure you're going to get what grows well in your area unless you know what you're specifically looking for. Last year, I was doing a presentation in person on the growing garlic, and I could not find the garlic to pass it around to show people. I could not find it in the local nurseries, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? And so I did order it online. I ordered it from Peaceful Valley. Okay, it's up in Auburn, that Auburn area. And they grow organically, and they do sell a lot of garlic. It is colder there, and they have a lot of hardnicks, but they did have the late California, which I wanted. I ordered it from there, and I said I would pick it up because I needed it for my class. So I drove up there on a Monday, not knowing that they aren't open on Monday. So go there for nothing. So then I called them and said I really need it right away. So they did send it to me on time. But that was some of the poorest performing garlic I've ever planted. So again, ordering it online, I don't know if that's a good idea. You could get it from your neighbor. Okay, so if your neighbor saved it from the previous harvest, that's an option. You don't know too much about it or how they kept it or anything. You could get it at the farmer's market, and I have done that one year where I know that it was grown organically, so I bought the garlic cloves there. You should not use the garlic from the grocery store, no matter if they said it's organically grown, because it is treated not to sprout, and you won't have very good luck with that. Okay, this is my visit this week to a nursery, a local nursery, and they had their garlic out. And you see they're selling each bulb separately. I don't know if you can read the price tags, but they're pretty high. One bulb for $7.50. That's the California early, okay? And then they are featuring the Spanish Roja, which is the hardneck, okay? And it's less expensive, but you can see it's smaller too. The bulbs are smaller than the California early. But one thing I did like about, I did buy some there. One thing I did like about it is being able to pick my bulb. So it's one price no matter what size the bulb was. And so I picked the very biggest bulbs they have. And we're going to talk about that more, how important it is that you plant the biggest clove. Cloves are the part inside of your bulb. So you need to be planting the very biggest clove. When are you going to plant it? And like I talked about how I was planning my newsletter article, and in my garden journal mentioned that I planted garlic in October. Okay, that's my reminder. It's Halloween. Thinking about the vampires. It's time to plant garlic. Okay, you can plant it in November, and people have even gone as late as December. But we had talked about this is a very long season plant. It's not ready for harvest for 180 to 210 days. So wherever you plant it, it's going to be tying up that space. The space, there's garlic there, nothing else is going to be growing there. Okay, so where are you going to plant it? Okay, you can have a small area. What I plant in, I garden over on 5th Street in Davis. I have a community garden. Okay, and my space is very valuable. Okay, my space is 18 by 20. Okay, and my main objective in having the garden is to grow cut flowers. So I give prime space to a lot of flowers. I do grow my husband and my favorite vegetables, and the garlic is one of those. But I grow in a space 3 feet by 3 feet. Okay, oops. And that's a pretty small space, okay? And yet I get enough garlic. I harvest in June, and then I have garlic at least through December, okay? And I cook with garlic daily, almost daily, okay? Um, I had a little, I was telling you about that I wasn't real happy with the garlic that I got last year ordering online. I did not get as big a harvest that I usually do. I will probably run out before December. Okay, so you can plant in raised beds or containers, but you have to make sure that it's at least 8 inches deep, the soil in there. You need full sun, okay? Of course, we're going through the winter, so you won't have sun all the time, but that spot should be a place that gets sun. You need to practice crop rotation. Remember we said that garlic doesn't have many pests, but for any crop, the pests tend to find it if you keep planting it in the same spot. So I do move mine every year. Some crop rotation instructions say every 3 years, but I pick a different 3 feet by 3 feet every year within my beds in the my garden. It is a good companion plant for plants in the brassica family, like kale, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cabbage. It's good company for them to plant those near your garlic. I also discovered last year that it's good to plant garlic near your roses. And I do have roses at that community garden. It keeps the aphids away. They don't like that garlic any more than a lot of other pests. Okay, and it seemed to help a lot. I didn't have many aphids at all there this year. Okay, now let's study the parts of a garlic because you're going to need this before you plant. Okay, and so there's the bulb, and sometimes you refer to it as the seed. You can see that picture on the far left. Those are pictures of my garlic, okay, and this is me preparing them. But that's the big bulb there. The scissors are cutting off the roots. And then the pieces that you see lying on the cutting board are cloves. Okay, those are the garlic cloves. That's what you cook with. There's leaves. You can see that in the lower picture, and leaves growing in my garden. The leaves come up pretty soon, actually. They come out fairly soon. Your scapes, remember, you're only going to see those in the hardnecks, and they aren't in that. They don't show in that picture, but I showed you another picture with scapes. And then you have the roots, and you see up there, I'm cutting off the roots, so I'm preparing my garlic to save it. And then their skin. Their skin is like a papery covering on both the cloves and the bulb. So you can see on the outside, my finger there where I'm cutting the roots off, I'm touching it. That year, my garlic had a lot of purple tint to it. And I think that was one that I got from the farmer's market. And I wasn't really sure exactly what I had that year, but it did have a little purpley to it, and it was good. Okay, how to plant it. Okay, and so you need to prepare your soil. You loosen it, and you work in some compost, and it's important to put some bone meal into the hole, okay? You separate your bulbs, okay, that's the bigger part. Separate the bulbs into individual cloves just before you're planting. So don't do it early because they start to dry out, and it's not good. That paper is protecting them. Don't take the paper or skin off of it, okay? I have made that mistake before. That's another protection for your cloves. Okay, keep the paper or skin on. Here you go. Choose the largest cloves. Okay, so when I purchase it, like when there's 5 of them in the bag, I take them all apart into individual cloves, and then I sort them. And I sort them into the biggest ones and then the smallest ones. And so I start planting just planting just those big ones. And then if I still have a lot of room, I will plant some of the small ones, but it's kind of disappointing what you'll get from the small ones. You'll be so much happier with those large cloves will produce large bulbs too. Okay, when you are looking at your clove, there's a pointy end and a smoother, more rounded end. You plant the pointy end up, okay? You plant them 1 inch deep and you space them 4 inches apart. Okay, so after you've got those planted, you cover them up, back up with the soil, and then irrigate and mulch. Mulching is really important. They have more about mulching. Okay, you need to mulch to keep that liquid in there, the humidity for the cloves. You're going to depend. These are a long crop, so you're going to depend on that rain through the winter to water your crops. So if it doesn't rain for 8 to 10 days, then you need to water it. Okay, so it does need rain about every 10 days. The mulch will help keep the moisture in. And I think in the pictures here, I'm using rice straw, which I like a lot because it doesn't have seeds in it. Leaves, I have taken dried up leaves, crushed them, and put them around my garlic. The last time I did it, a big wind came up and blew them off. So I'm not so much into that one anymore, but it does provide a good mulch. I'm currently using, last year I used mini bark, or micro bark, as my mulch around the garden. You don't have to worry about frost, really, not frost tender. And you don't need to do anything other than that watering every 10 days until February. Okay, you need to mark it on your calendar because you fertilize it with a high nitrogen fertilizer. And that gets, although those leaves have started, they're growing there, it keeps those leaves nice and green, and that's feeding your bulb too. So you need to use a high nitrogen fertilizer, which could be blood meal, feather meal, those are pure nitrogen. Fish emulsion, you see I have a picture of a fish emulsion container here. You're probably familiar with those numbers. See the numbers at the bottom of the container, 511. The first number is nitrogen. So you want that to be the big number, okay? And then you don't do anything till May, okay? And then you switch to a low nitrogen, okay? And something like a tomato fertilizer, because you're feeding that bulb then. It gets a little tricky, but because some of your cloves might be ready sooner than others, whatever, depending on what you grew that year. You need to keep the area weed free also is another task. But look over this list and it's not a lot of work. It's like pretty easy to grow garlic. This is called green or spring garlic. I bought this particular one at the farmer's market, and I don't pull mine up like this. But you can if you want spring garlic. It looks just like a green onion, doesn't it? Okay, so it has a little different taste than onion, but a lot of people like to cook with that. So you could pull up some of your garlic bulbs early, and you'd have what's called spring garlic. Okay, it's time to harvest. Okay, so how do we know when to harvest? Look at that bottom picture and you can see the bottom leaves are turning brown. Okay, they're starting to fall over. That gives you the clue, it's time. Now, generally you would think you're counting out the days from when you planted, 180 to 210 days, but that's a broad range. So you need to be watching your plants and what's happening with those leaves. when you start to see the bottom was turning brown, it's getting to be time for harvest. Okay. You should stop watering about 2 weeks before you harvest. Okay, so maybe when you start seeing a little brown, then you stop watering. It's important. I didn't do it last year. Mine seemed to be ready much faster than I thought they were going to be, and I just watered. Um, and the problem is if you water too close to harvest, when you harvest, the bulbs are muddy then, and then so you want to be able to kind of shake off that dirt from your when you harvest off your bulbs. But if you've just watered, it tends to stick to the bulbs, which not fun. Okay, so I use a pitchfork and I loosen up the soil around the bulbs and try to stay back away from the bulb so that I don't put a hole in the bulb with my pitchfork. When I lift it up, then I start pulling, and when I get a lift and I start to see those bulbs showing, then I start pulling up by hand. Then I knock off the dirt, sort of just shake it off, and then you're supposed to lay it out in the shade. I don't do that because I garden at a community garden, and somebody would probably take it if I did that. So I bring mine home and put it in the garage. Okay, so this is my, it's actually a sled that I use to move things from my car to my garden, that blue thing there. And I leave it on that in my garage for about a week. You can go 2 weeks to dry it out a little more to get more of that dirt, to really get the dirt off. Remember, it'll come off a lot easier if you haven't watered recently. Okay, so you're going to try to get well, you are getting your garlic ready to store it because you've got all this garlic and you've got months of garlic to use to cook with. So how are you going to store it? I used to store my whole bulbs. Okay, what I would do is take 5 of them or so, and then the leaves are still on it, the stalks, and I would braid them together. Okay, and then take some string or something and hang them in my garage and let them dry out for a couple of weeks. Okay, so you are during that time, then you're constantly brushing off that dirt. Okay. One of the problems is then if you save the whole dry clove like that you buy in the store, you have to have a good place to store it. Okay. You have to store it in a dark, cool place, just like they say, storing potatoes and those kinds of crops. Now, I don't really have a cellar. Okay? And quite often when you get this advice about storing these crops, it's more the Midwest where you have like a basement or a cellar where you keep your produce that way. But I don't really have a place that would keep it cool enough and long-term storage. Like I said, my garlic will last through December, so it lasts 6 months. So a friend of mine is also a master gardener. She introduced me to the idea of freezing it. Okay. And so I'm going to show you more detail about how to do it, but you could also dry it. And I'm going to show you some of those procedures. Okay. Okay, this is my freezing. So my friend chops up the garlic. She's harvesting it, and as soon as it's cleaned up and everything, she opens up the cloves and chops it, and she freezes it that way in portions that she's going to use to cook with. I think that by remember that protective paper that's on each clove, I think that's some added protection for it being in the freezer. And so these are my bags of garlic. I've cleaned them up. I've opened up the bulbs into individual cloves. And then I bag up a handful and put them in a plastic freezer bag, label it. Okay, these are from June of 23, those purpley ones. And then I have a freezer in my garage where I keep things that are more long-term storage. I put most of them out there and one in the freezer in my kitchen so that it's handy for me. And so these, right before I'm ready to cook with them, oh, if I think about it, I put it out maybe 10 minutes before I'm going to use them. So I just lay it out on my cutting board and let them thaw. Okay. I have gotten anxious or not taken them out early enough, and they're kind of frozen. But the paper, you can easily remove the paper at that point, and I can chop it with a knife when it's frozen too. If I do let it freeze, then I will put it in a thing that I mince it, okay, and get it chopped up really fine. You can peel them, and you could peel the cloves and puree them in a blender, okay? That's some way with the oil. You can puree it with oil. Another couple ways that people preserve their garlic is to open up the cloves. You're not crushing it or anything, and put it in wine, okay, a container of wine, or put it in a container of vinegar. So you've got garlic flavored vinegar, okay, that you can use that in your cooking. You could put that in your refrigerator and it keeps for up to 4 months, okay? And I do have an article that I will share with you. It's by a UCD professor, actually one of my neighbors, on food safety. That's her specialty. And I will put that, we'll send it out to you later, about preserving in a safe way too, preserving your garlic, because there are some things to consider if you're doing some of these methods, okay? You could also dry your garlic, okay, and make it into garlic salt, okay? What to plant after garlic is a thing, because remember what a long season plant this is. It's occupying this part of your garden for 180 to 210 days. Nothing else could go in there. So you're taking it out, it's opened up somewhere in June. You've already planted your spring planting, okay? And so what's left? Now, there are certain things that don't play well with garlic. The idea is that similar pests will go after some other plants. So there's a list of what not to plant. So legumes, asparagus, lettuce, those are no's. Okay, do not plant those in the same space that you had garlic that year, where you just harvested. But the things that you could put in, and I'm always thinking of what could actually produce if I'm not planting it till June. And I think about not wise to direct seed, because that's going to take me too long, but to put transplants in, little plants. So possibly corn could work there, cucumbers, pumpkins, squash. I'll go back to squash. I decided to do zucchini after my garlic this year. It didn't work out so good. I forgot to look at my slide because I direct seeded them. I mean, to me, zucchini kind of germinates fast and everything. But again, you're growing kind of late. So I should have gotten transplants. I did put seed in, and it was kind of slow to get any zucchini. You know, I'm gardening at a community garden, and most people have lots of zucchini, and I think they were feeling sorry for me and dropping off zucchini ever so often. I got some, but it wasn't great. I have to remind myself from this slide next year, if I do zucchini in that spot, to use transplants. Tomatoes are another one. You're not going to start with little seedlings. You're gonna go get a pretty good start on a tomato that you plant in that spot. You're thinking of how late you are gardening at that time. Okay, I'm ready for some questions. Want to let me know, Joan, what we have?
There are no questions.
Oh,
There was one. I'm sorry,
trouble.
there's one. Do you fertilize between May? I'm sorry. Do you fertilize between February and May?
No, none. You do that high nitrogen in February, and I think it's wise to do it pretty early in February, and then you don't fertilize again until May, early May, very early, because some of yours might be producing by the end of May. Very early May, a low nitrogen fertilizer. That's all you do. Other than putting the blood meal in the hole, not the blood meal, the bone meal when you plant.
Will garlic deter voles?
It does. I mean, I don't think they would like it. No, I think they might take a nip out of it and then they'll leave.
Same question, but will garlic deter above and below ground rodents and squirrels?
I think so. Yes. I had quite a problem where I used to live with deer, and they didn't like it at all. I mean, even the leaves smell garlicky, and they don't like that smell. Um, yeah, I garden again at the community garden. We have a lot of varmints. I mean, we do have rats even, and skunks. They don't bother plants, but they're going after your other things. But no, nothing's ever bothered it.
How about winter vegetables after harvesting the garlic?
Yes, you're waiting all through the summer then. I was thinking that you're harvesting it in June, and you're not going to plant your winter vegetables till end of August, beginning of September. You probably could put things there. I would avoid it. I think I put in some beans, pole beans, kind of late, and beets. I put in just recently, and I didn't put them in the garlic section.
Any other questions, anyone?
Nope.
Nope, I think that's it.
Good.
Oh,
Okay.
wait. Here's one more. I don't understand the difference between hard and soft.
Okay, that's just a type, and the differences are the type of. There's many different types of garlic, but those are the two main kinds: hard neck and soft neck. And a lot depends on your climate, which grows better there. Soft neck grows better where we are, but apparently the Spanish Roja. If you really want scapes, then I think that's the one you should grow here. And it's a hard neck.
And that's it. Lots of nice comments. Oh, how do you know what you have? How do you know what you have?
Which one you're buying? I know. Well, if you go to a nursery, they're going to be labeled, okay? And they do. I didn't mention, but when you buy in the nursery, they have to be inspected by the agriculture Department of Agriculture. In California, they're inspected by the California Department of Agriculture, and they're usually marked. If you buy them in a bag, they're marked that they've been inspected. The thing is, you buy them in the grocery store, they're inspected by the Food and Drug Administration. It's not; they're different groups. You don't know what you have. Primarily in the grocery store, I think it's that the soft neck. That's what they're having. You could ask if you're at the farmer's market and you wanted to buy some from them. You could ask what it is.
And last comment is also recommend the movie The Madness of King George,
Oh,
1994.
okay, yeah, yeah.
And there's one more comment. How are shapes used?
Shapes. Oh,
Maryland.
scapes. Oh, scapes.
Okay.
Scapes. Yeah, they're used in cooking. I think it's primarily Asian cuisine that like to have the
Okay.
scapes.
And why do you not recommend organic from a grocery store?
Because it's been sprayed to not sprout.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Oh, do you have to put them in the fridge?
Um, if you're storing them, before you grow or after you've harvested? I'm not sure of that question.
Tanak, would you like to unmute and ask? Before you grow.
No, you don't have to refrigerate then, no.
That's it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Pam. That was very informative,
Yeah.
and hopefully people will go out and think about growing garlic because it's very it's pretty much a trouble-free crop, and and you don't have to grow a lot to grow your yearly supply of garlic. So it's definitely worth something to grow. All right, so not next Thursday, next session, October 23rd, Joanna Solons, who's with University Extension, is going to talk about the impact of climate change and how to adapt to it now and what plants to buy for the future that are going to be better adapted to a hotter climate than we have even now. So definitely something that's going to affect all of us as gardeners and definitely worth listening to. So with that, thanks for coming, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you in a couple of weeks. All right,
Bye.
thanks,
Bye,
Pam.
everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.